Just like my Noctua review articles that are about a week and a half late.
Yeah, I was a little slow to add them too, so I'll take partial responsibility.
No, I've still got to do the testing on them.
Oh, okay. I absolve myself of all responsibility.
But because the ITX board died, I had to do it on the ATX system. I've still got to get all of that out of my cupboards and stuff like that onto the bench, do the testing, then take it all apart and put it back away.
What are you doing, man? What are you doing?
I need a proper office for this. We need to start earning enough money that I can get a commercial property, like a small office, so I can do things properly. Oh, and a weekly wage.
Given that we're operating at a loss right now, we could totally swing that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, quiet. Hello and welcome to Small... Fuck.
I knew that wasn't going to work.
That is really inappropriate.
I can feel it.
The pause beforehand was too long.
Oh, it was because the pause was too long. Oh, thanks for the expert advice.
I know these things. I flub so much.
All right, pause. Hello to Low Volume Small Form Factor.net's podcast, and yes, indeed, this is I, Joshua Ramirez, also known as PlayfulPhoenix. I have returned from foreign, faraway lands, disconnected from the internet, and now instead of helping people I don't know, I can screw over the lives and livelihoods of those that I do now that I have returned. Thank you so much. Today we are actually joined by everyone. We've managed to get everyone back in the studio, which I'm really excited for. So to start us off, I'd like to say welcome to James, also known as Aibohphobia. James, how are you doing?
Doing good. Though this distinctly does not look like a studio, but I'm not sure.
Yes, my studio consists of a Blue Yeti microphone on the armrest or palm rest of my laptop and a glass of Diet Coke at 7 in the morning. And that's my studio. It's very nice. Gets the job done. We are also joined today by John, a.k.a. Confusis. How you doing, John?
We have a studio? I can't see you. Where are you gone? I can't see you.
My studio is in the shadows.
That explains a lot.
Yes, I'm actually communicating to all you guys behind I don't know, Tor, VPN, all the encryption, all of it.
The NSA is watching you now.
Dang it! It's doing so well.
And cut.
You guys, I need to tell you a really important state secret before that. No, if someone from the NSA is like tracking and watching my behavior, and that could very well be true, I honestly feel bad for them. I think they'd have a very boring and painful existence. They'd be like, "Why is this person looking at more pictures of cats? I don't get it."
Their hidden code.
Yeah, that's right. Oh God, hidden propaganda in the bytecode for the cat images. It's actually recruitment materials. Anyway, finally we have, of course, Jay Mattison, otherwise known as Mr. Tek Everything, or as we've been calling him recently, Carl. Carl, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I hate my new name, but I'm doing great.
You don't like Carl? It's Carl with a K. That's like, the hit.
That's even worse.
How's that?
It's like maybe 50% worse.
What should we call you?
You should probably, why don't we go with, this might sound crazy, let's go with J with a J.
No.
Nah, given the perils of your motherboards dying in sequence, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. Maybe you talked about the last show, which I wasn't here for. I'm just going to call you Motherboard Slayer from now on.
That is fitting, apropos.
Okay, great. I'll try and remember. We'll see how well that does. In any case, I am super happy to be back. As many people know, I know that in my absence, it was a bit of a struggle even then to sort of get a schedule and get a podcast up. So this episode's actually going to go up pretty soon after the last one. But for those that weren't aware, I basically, at the time when we would have normally scheduled the recording of the last episode of Low Volume, I was actually abroad. I was doing some volunteer work in a very remote village in Honduras, and they had no internet to speak of, and I had far too much on my plate in terms of work to do for that community to really be able to participate even if I wanted to. So it was a good trip, got a lot done, but I'm back, I'm ready to go. I've certainly got a lot going on that I want to talk about. We have a new segment for the podcast that I'm really, really excited that we'll talk about a little bit later. And man, let me tell you, it took ages for me to catch up on all of the things that happened in the world and in sort of the computing world while I was gone. And then I get back and all these big things happen, like Intel's layoffs and all of this. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussion. Speaking of which, I'm taking a look at our notes for this episode right now, and I figure we can kick things off if we look at the very top of the list here. The one announcement that we have to make that has to do sort of with us, with Small Form Factor Network, is that we're happy to say that we actually now have a new Instagram account. So we've already been on Twitter and Facebook, and for the most part, we've basically been pushing a lot of the content we've been writing on the news site onto those accounts, just so that sort of they're accessible within social media and people can sort of follow us that way. But funny enough story, a person had an Instagram account that sort of had some overlap with our stuff, for lack of a better word, and so we reached out to them and see if they'd be interested sort of curating an official Instagram account for Small Form Factor Network, and they agreed. They thought it was a good idea too. So forum member Jatrius21, his name is John. And if you go onto Instagram and follow SFF PC, all undercase, all one word, he administrates that, and he's literally just basically posting images of really cool small form factor systems and related stuff, some of it being pulled from content that we're reporting on, some of it from our forum, a lot of it just sort of stuff that he's found on its own. So it's this nice sort of little curated feed of really neat builds. And it's sort of a neat opportunity for us because it's just another way in which we can sort of show or give insight to the awesome, amazing world of small form factor. And we're just super happy that John was able to join us and has been doing such a good job of curating that. So I'd encourage all of our listeners to take a look, even if you're not on Instagram, as I am not as well. Diving into the news, we begin, first headline, Zotac has launched a PCI one-slot GeForce 710 graphics card. Now, this comes from, I believe, Tech Power-Up. And the importance here is that, it's a single slot, and I believe it's a what do you call it? The smaller... Is it a condensed or compressed PCI slot? Does anyone know?
It's an X1. Yeah.
Okay. And it's passively cooled as well, so it just has sort of like a heatsink on it, and then just dissipates heat that way. So the 710, obviously older, obviously not exactly something you're going to want to use if gaming is one of your primary concerns. That being said, it's actually kind of nice if you're doing everything but that. If all you really want to do is make sure that you're able to sort of present the desktop and other things fluidly and get a bit more oomph than your regular old integrated GPU, it's kind of a nice upgrade from there. And of course, it's compact and passively cooled, which obviously for small form factor concerns is great because it means the vast majority of systems would support being able to drop this one right on in with little concern for power or even space or slots or other things. This isn't exactly in my wheelhouse, but I didn't know if any of you guys had read up on this and had any thoughts on how nice it is to have this in the market.
Yeah, I found this one on Tech Power Up, and I at first thought it must be the most useless graphics card known to man. But then I had a bit more of in-depth think about it, and remembered all of the older like Zotac or OEM ITX boards that are available relatively cheap on eBay. They've got the honestly crappy old Intel GMA graphics on them, or 3000 series AMD graphics, and this would be a significant upgrade because most of those boards only have an X1 slot.
Yeah, it's also good for like, and I think this probably what it's more targeted at for like businesses that need more monitors, but like they may have some like dual output video card in there already, so they can just throw this in one of the X1 slots and get 2 more outputs. And then, like you said, just upgrading older OEM machines.
Yeah, that's definitely the obvious use case. The one thing I couldn't find when I was looking at this was a price point. I mean, given the age of the 710, I would imagine this thing's pretty darn inexpensive. So I mean, it's
$300.
That would be so disappointing. Because no, I mean, like, it's not, to the point of John and James, it's not like the most exciting thing in the world. But yeah, like, there are definitely lots of instances where you don't really want to spend a lot of money. You just want a way to say, okay, I want to be able to plug in more monitors to this otherwise kind of ho-hum computer. And this is kind of a really accessible way to do it, whereby you don't even need an X16 slot. Like, practically any slot you have open will work. And then power requirements are low. It's passively cooled. It takes up almost no space. So it's smart to have this sort of thing where it's like, yeah, this isn't special. This isn't super powerful Osmo, but you know what? It's inexpensive. It's almost certainly going to be compatible with your system, and if all you're really looking for is the path of least resistance to be able to plug in a monitor or 2 more than you already have, then, well, here you go. I would imagine that there are lots of people that sort of fall in that bucket. So I think it's a smart thing. I don't know what else is out there that would sort of fill that role as well, but I know how surprisingly uncommon single slot graphics cards tend to be anyway. So I'd imagine that this is definitely fulfilling a need that many people have.
Looking at pricing on Newegg, the GT710 is between $30 and $40. The existing Zotac GT710 with the full length slot is $37. But in the past, there's also been cards like the HD 5450, which is also a pretty mediocre card, but still can do a moderate amount of stuff. I think I played Minecraft on one of them for a while. They also come with an X1 slot, if you can find them.
Okay, fair enough. So, like $40 probably. You pay a little bit more, or at the high end of that range for the fact, that they're able to make it small and on X1 and passively cooled and all of that. But yeah, like, again, that's a really cheap way to go from a computer that can't do something like 3 monitors to, hey, now you can have a 3-monitor desktop setup. Don't try and do surround gaming on it, obviously, but that's plenty of juice to have lots of Chrome tabs. All the Chrome tabs, really. Just so many Chrome tabs.
Or Minecraft at 10 FPS.
That's right. It's an 8-bit game, right? It's true to the aesthetic is to have a low frame rate. That's how that works. All right. I think we've covered this about as much as it can be covered. So moving on to the next item on our list, and this is actually going back to some stuff that we covered on the smallformfactor.net news site. MSI, who's actually been, when I was reading through stuff when I got back from Honduras, MSI came up a lot, and I honestly don't have a good explanation as to why. I don't know if they've just been doing a lot of announcements or whatever recently. But MSI has announced something. Now, I'm going to mispronounce this, so let me mispronounce it, and then I need someone to tell me the correct pronunciation. So I read it as the MSI Aegis? Or is it Aegis?
It's Aegis.
Aegis? That's so stupid. AEGIS, small form factor gaming PC. To my eyes, it looks like the head of a transformer. Anyone who's familiar with MSI's sort of style in terms of a lot of their products that are aimed towards gaming, I think they call it the G series. It's got like the little dragon on the shield medallion that makes it look like a Ferrari or something like that. So it's very much a desktop enclosure that really embraces really embraces that aesthetic. But the nice thing about this is that it's a pretty darn compact build that is designed towards being able to support a lot of their hardware all the way up to the GTX 980 Ti, which is, of course, sort of the highest end graphics card Maxwell from NVIDIA that isn't entering into like Titan burn your wallet or bank to the ground territory. It's also got this sort of like built-in stand, which is interesting, a little bit unique. It sort of makes the case sort of float a bit, kind of holds it at an angle. And then, when you look at sort of MSI's material, talking up some of the benefits of it, obviously they're sort of really talking up the portability. They're talking up kind of the way they've oriented a lot of the cooling. They're talking up the fact that, okay, you can now have multiple hard drives for mass storage, and then we have this dedicated slot to put in an SSD as like the boot drive or application drive or what have you. And then I guess there's a bit of a focus on making accessing some of the components a bit easier so that for the lifetime of the system, if you ever need to upgrade anything, that's actually possible. So, I honestly have never been too interested in these sort of pre-builts just because I'm more interested in building myself. Definitely not to my taste. I think the design is sort of garish and ostentatious and over the top personally. But I will say that, in terms of the feature set and the fact that they're really pushing towards the lower end of the volume spectrum was definitely interesting to see, especially in sort of the gaming realm where oftentimes builds tend to get a bit bloated because the belief is that you need that to have better cooling and room for bigger, beefier, enthusiast-grade parts. So who reported on this? Was this you, John?
It was me, and I couldn't find anything about the motherboard in this system at all. So apparently the launch on it is in
64 days, if I'm reading this right.
64 days, 16 hours, 46 minutes, and 28 seconds.
They have a countdown?
But, they do. But this might get cut, but in my personal opinion, this thing fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down.
Wow. And
I do not like this in any way.
I thought I was being a little harsh. Jeez. What about you guys, John and or excuse me, Jay and James? I'm curious as to how you like the design or not.
It's interesting. I guess I can see why they built it. People are going to look at that and they're going to say, "Ooh, LEDs, red, black. I want that." And here's the only issue I have with it. It's a mini ITX system that they have propped up at an angle to make it taller and now longer, and also put an overhang over the back. So you've taken something that was decently compact, and by form over function, I guess, you've made it now fairly large. So I don't really see why they did that. I guess you could rock it without the stand, but with it, it's a little bit silly in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it looks ugly too, like the whole stupid gaming nonsense. But yeah, it's just functionally, it's a lot bigger than it needs to be because of the stand and just the styling and stuff. So yeah, it's stupid. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like what John was saying, it's probably a Z170 board. I would think, maybe H series, but it's definitely going to be Skylake. I mean, internal layout is fairly straightforward. It's kind of like the what is it, the Nightblade or whatever their kind of compact one is, or I always get that confused with the Ace Rock. But yeah, just kind of GPU using an extender cable on the back side of the motherboard. One thing I'm not sure of is the power supply, because it's...
So I'm pretty sure it's not a standard form factor. If you look at in the article, John posted sort of these Silent Storm Cooling 2 system images that show sort of the pathways that cool the individual components.
Yeah, it looks
and if
like
you look at the first one, the PSU looks like it's in the base itself, which there's just no way they're fitting. I mean, you can see in the back almost looks like it looks
1U.
Yeah, it looks like a 1U or something like that.
Something like what the EVGA Hadron had.
Right, which is so I mean, A, this is stupid because it means you can't remove this thing from the stand when it looks like you should be able to. And B, you know, that thing's going to be loud.
The curse of the 40mm fan.
Right. Having to blow air across all that distance. So yeah, some questionable decisions. I mean, you know, I suspect this isn't a perfect example or instance of like knowing your audience, knowing your consumer base, and that maybe we don't overlap with that at all. And you know, I think, you know, so they did the thing where like, okay, they're folding the graphics card over to the, I think, the back of the motherboard and sort of separating that out and have storage kind of sliced in between that, and so those are thermally isolated. And so I think there's some interesting things there. It's just that they do that, and then they have all this room on the bottom where it would have logically made sense to put the power supply, and then it goes totally unused, and they have this weird system with the stand and the power supply, and just, I don't, you know, it's, I would have loved to have been a fly in the wall with the designers and engineers having a conversation over this, and like, what were their priorities?
Transformers.
Well, yeah, but like, you know, I think that
Transformers and 3.5-inch hard drive base, because apparently you really need two of those in a small form factor build.
That's actually a good point.
Interesting, it looks like in that gap underneath the graphics card there is a blanking plate for a Flex ATX power supply. So I'm wondering if the core chassis is going to be used for
Oh, you're right.
a somewhat more subtle system in the future. Because the layout itself I don't have an issue with, but with less tat on it, it might be something I'd actually be interested in.
Yeah, honestly, I'd be far less critical of it if they took that PSU and just put it in that empty space and just ditch this stupid stand idea.
It's a perfect spot there. It looks like it's designed to have the power supply there. There's even mounting rails and stuff in there.
Why didn't they just do that?
Because it doesn't look like the core chassis isn't like the same as the Nightblade. So
Right.
they've got a new case here,
Well,
or a new core here. What else are they going to come up with?
It begs the question of what does the stand by doing it this way? What does that add? And it's like, I don't know what it adds. Like if it was like, wow, this looks insanely cool with that, or like, wow, there's this astoundingly great practical or other benefit, I'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, I disagree, but I can see where they're coming from. With this, I just can't see where they're coming from. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But that's just me.
I found it.
Found what?
It looks... I was just doing some digging on the MSI website. It looks like the core chassis is from the Nightblade MI2 barebones, where the power supply is in that spot.
Oh, so
I
this
just
is
linked
sort
that
of...
in the chat down the bottom.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it right now. So this may very well just be
The same core.
So they took an
Yeah,
okay
this-
design and then made it uglier and bigger.
Yes. It is the same core chassis. It's got the same hard drive bay at the top and everything.
so in industry parlance, we call that pulling a Corsair.
Yes.
So they pulled a serious Corsair here, guys.
Or a BitPhoenix.
Oh, even better, they pulled a serious BitPhoenix. and for what it's worth, Corsair and BitPhoenix, we love you guys. Don't hurt us.
Just no more prodigies.
Send us your products for review. I promise we'll be fair. All right. So we're never going to hear from those companies again.
Yep,
Moving
we just
right
burned
along.
two more bridges.
Burned two more. We're really good at burning bridges.
And saying that I burnt the BitPhoenix 1 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 3 episodes from now, like, not only will we have no companies willing to lend us products for review, we'll probably have no listeners. We'll have insulted everyone at least 5 times. Oh yeah. We're like South Park. Everyone gets made fun of eventually.
That's all in good jest.
Yeah. Next up on the news roster, and actually the last bit before we enter into our main feature and brand new segment, which I'm really looking forward to. But first, let's talk about this. I see the title of it is Silverstone Expo, and I'm not sure who wrote this. Who wrote this?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, this is kind of so anybody listening, this is going to be kind of a weird article. So what it is like I don't know, maybe it'll be posted by the time this goes live, but basically twice a year in Japan, Silverstone has like a little event kind of showing off their products. Since they focus on SFF, and SFF's kind of a big thing in the Japanese market is they'll have this event. And so the spring 2016 event just happened like 2 weeks ago. And actually one of our forum members, veryrarium, actually was able to attend it. And he took some pictures, and I'm just waiting on permission from him to post the article with his pictures. So not a whole lot happened there, mostly just kind of more information about power supplies. So we have a few more details about the new SFX units they have coming out. So there's a 550 watt, the SX 550, that is a gold rated non-modular unit. So kind of like an upgrade to the 450 watt bronze non-modular. And then we have the 550 watt, and then the 500 watt, and then the 650 watt modular gold rated units were also there with the 92 millimeter fans. So mostly it's stuff we kind of already knew, just kind of some pictures and stuff, which is nice. And then the SX 700 LPT was there, the 700 watt platinum, which we've known about that for like a long time now, like over a year now. We've known about this unit, but it looks like that's finally getting close. We should see that hopefully May, and then the 500 watt non-modular I think will be launching either later this month or early next month, and then the SFX units with the 92 millimeter fans will be launching, I think, late Q2 at this point, or maybe Q3. So the only interesting new thing we learned was that there's going to be two derivatives of the 700 watt platinum SFXL unit. There'll be a 600 watt, which I think we kind of knew about already, and then a 500 watt. So those will be out in June, but we don't really know anything else about them, like pricing or connectors or anything like that. So we just know there's a 600 and a 500 watt coming out later this year. Yeah. So that basically covers it.
I have to say, first off, I like the idea of having these sorts of events. I've never really been to, honestly, an event for like PC folks, but like going to one specific to people towards the small form factor end of the spectrum would definitely be cool, just because we're a bit of a rarer breed. But also just, holy cow, I mean, the number, even if all you're looking at is Silverstone, the number of SFX and SFXL power supplies that we're starting to get is getting crazy. It was not that long ago where you had like basically three options. And if you were lucky and were well connected with people in China, maybe an additional two from vendors you've never heard of before and probably couldn't even pronounce. And now from like Silverstone alone, I mean, it's like almost 10 different units, all the way from sort of, bottom of the barrel, like 300 watt, non-modular, whatever, to like a 700 watt, platinum rated, modular, short cable, all of the fancy stuff. So this is really cool, and I'm really happy that we had a forum member that was able to participate and take photos, and I really look forward to getting a peek at those.
So I was just trying to search the UL listing for the power supply. Just to see who. I was trying to see who the OEM is, and it's actually coming up as Silverstone.
For which one?
The 550, the one that's got the only one I can see the UL code on.
Oh, it's FSP.
All of these FSP?
No, just the 550 non-modular is FSP. The rest of them are actually high power, or Surfa, same thing. So the SFXL one, we've known that for a while, so that's not really a surprise. But yeah, the two SFX units with the 92 millimeter fans, like I thought they would be enhanced units, since enhanced makes the 600 watt that Silverstone already has. But no, these are going to be from high power, which is weird because like Silverstone's has been using enhanced for a while for their high wattage SFX units, but now they're kind of switching to high power. Yeah.
Woo. Interesting. Kind of wish they'd go back to FSP. I trust them.
All right, and with that, I think we're going to wrap up the news, and we will dive in headlong and forelong into what I think is going to be one of the most exciting and entertaining segments we have ever done and will ever continue to do on an ongoing basis. I am so pleased. I don't know if we've actually mentioned or talked about this publicly at all, so I don't know how much of a surprise this is going to be to our listeners, but I'm pleased to introduce a new segment that we sort of brainstormed a little while ago, have been working on for some time. And as Confucius mentions in the chat, he's putting on the boxing gloves for this. Get ready. It is the small form factor build challenge. Now, hopefully in post I can actually edit those with real effects so that doesn't sound as totally stupid as it did to me as I was doing it. But in any case, the build challenge is sort of reminiscent. I sort of kind of introduced the idea of doing something like this, and then we talked about it, and we eventually came up with like what the format's going to look like and all of this. But I was sort of inspired by this because I remember when I was a kid in high school and when I first started getting into PC building in general, I wish I could remember the website, but I found that they had done this thing where basically they'd give a few folks on their crew a build, right? They'd say, okay, I need you to build the best possible video workstation for $1,400, and it has to use, I don't know, it had to be under 20 liters or something like that, right? And so they would give each of these folks on the team like a week to build out the system, spec it out, and then spend some time basically explaining, well, here's what I chose and here's why I chose it, and they'd defend their decisions, and then, you know, they'd come together and they'd post an article where they'd share all three of the builds, and then they'd sort of let the reader decide, like, okay, like, what do you think, which of these builds do you think sort of succeeded? Which do you think did the best job of sort of fulfilling the criteria, both in spirit and, you know, in minutia and the details and the technical implementation? And the reason I like this so much is I think that, it's really interesting to be able to see how different builders with different perspectives really tackle similar problems. I think that one can always learn a lot from being able to read through the rationale of a lot of different folks about what sort of matters or what doesn't matter and things you might be thinking about or not thinking about. And, you know, I think it's a great way of sort of utilizing competition in a healthy way and in a fun way. So what this segment is going to be is, and this will actually, not only will we be talking about it when we do it on the podcast, and we'll be doing this on a monthly basis, but we'll also have a story on Small Form Factor Network, and we'll also have a forum thread on this, because this is going to be something that the community is kind of really interactive with. So what's going to happen is every month we'll have a build challenge where we've decided and announced ahead of time, here's the challenge, right? Like here's the build you have to be able to do. And we lay out all the rules just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Some of the rules stay constant from time to time. So like, for example, one of the rules is there's always going to be a price point. And in order to make sure you hit that price point, we're allowed to buy new components only from either Newegg or Amazon, and we don't include shipping just to keep everything kind of simple and uniform and flat. Of course, we're small form factor network, so everything has to be small form factor, which we just have chosen to define as 19 liters or less in overall volume. But beyond that, you know, we just say, okay, here's the build to be made, go for it. And we will each independently have a week up until the broadcast date of the podcast to go out, spec a list, throw it on PC Part Finder, and basically get ready to sort of share that with everyone here. And then we'll each take some time to share, like, here's our build. And then we'll each get some time to defend our build and say, here's why mine's is the best. And then my favorite part is we'll each get some time to tear each other's builds apart and try and convince the audience, here's why everyone else's build sucks and is horrible and mine is amazing. And then we turn it back to the community. this will be the opportunity for us to basically have some dialogue and discourse about these builds. But the forum thread will act as a means for people to actually be able to vote and say, okay, I've read about it, or I've listened about it, or I've looked at it on the forum. Here's what I think was the most successful build out of all the ones that were made. And within like a week after we open that up, we'll close up voting. We'll show who the winner is. We'll give them a little nice crown emoji for their victory. And then we'll also be giving the community the opportunity to then select what the next build challenge is. So we're still trying to figure out whether or not it'll be only suggestions or if like we'll have a big list and people can vote on what they like. But the community will get to decide what the build challenges are that we do. And sometimes that might be really straightforward and helpful stuff like, a 700 budget PC, or, I want a gaming rig, but I only have like $1,100. How do I sort of maximize bang for buck? Or, like I do these really specific tasks, what's the best way to build towards these things? Other times, I hope, at least me personally, it's kind of really ridiculous builds where we have to get pretty creative in order to fulfill the criteria. I think this will be a lot of fun, if only because it gives us the opportunity to do something that we all really enjoy doing, which is sort of thinking about and making builds in sort of a really kind of fun and competitive, but also just highly entertaining and just neat way. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share that the first build challenge that we decided to settle on, we wanted something a little challenging. So we agreed that the build challenge for the very, very first iteration of this was to be able to create a small form factor gaming rig at or under $450. Now, $450, honestly, in the realm of gaming, does not necessarily go a long way. And in fact, it was actually even more challenging for this build challenge because although we say you don't need to worry about peripherals, you only need to worry about the desktop itself, we said you did have to account for the cost of an operating system. And so if you went with Windows 10, obviously, already you were down to basically $350 because you had to buy a retail copy of that. We're assuming that, this is for average Joes and going to have access to a student edition of this or what have you. And, getting spectacular gaming performance at either of those levels of money is definitely a challenge, especially when the enthusiast grade graphics cards easily cost more than the whole system we've been tasked with building. So I've been really, really curious to see how each of us approach this because I think there are lots of really tough decisions to be made at the bottom end in terms of what's really worth having versus what you can sacrifice because it doesn't really contribute that much to gaming performance itself. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go in alphabetical order, and we will start with James. And by the way, listeners, we will be sharing links to the PC part builds lists for these in the article as well as on the forum, so you can look for those there. Obviously, we'll talk through what we chose. And then just bear in mind, the agreement was that the price out for this had to be $450, not including shipping, but including discounts. And that was at the time of airing. So what may happen is that if you listen to us in a week or what have you, and then you check out these listings and, oh my goodness, now it's like $464. What happened? Just bear in mind that it was fulfilling the pricing criteria when this went live. So it still qualifies. It's just that pricing for online stuff is so dynamic that things could move around. I mean, I was literally within 50 cents of $450. So I have no doubt that all I need is for one rebate or something to shift, and I'm now over budget. But without further ado, James, walk us through your system. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. And if you'll notice, I guess, like you said, pricing changed. It's now under budget.
Yay!
I don't know. I it's weird though because I added it up with a calculator because last night it was $452, and then but an hour earlier it was where it's at now $440. But it doesn't. I don't think any things changed, but I don't know. Something weird's going on with the pricing. But anyway, it's under budget, so So basically, what I did is that. I wanted something that would be future proof, or at least it would be reasonably upgradable. So that's kind of what I went with here. So I stripped it down to just kind of the bare necessities. We don't have any kind of like unnecessary luxuries like a case. So just what so just what you need to turn it on. So yeah. But yeah, there's money left over, so you can like buy some like cardboard and tape and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, walk us through your part selection.
So, yeah, like I said, I wanted something that would be like upgradable and future proof. So that obviously means Intel. So we went with an i3 4160. It's got an ASRock B85M ITX board. So that way, once you can afford a case, you can actually get something that would be small. 4 gigs of RAM, which actually I left it at 4 because of the budget thing, but now there'd be room. Actually, there'd be room now to upgrade it to 8 and still keep it under 450. And then just the cheapest drive you can get, which actually turns out to be a 120 gig SSD, strangely enough. And then here's kind of like the main thing is I really wanted to get like a decent video card, so I have the MSI R7 360, which, I mean, it's not going to like crush any benchmarks or anything, but it'll definitely play most everything that's out there at some kind of settings. Just the cheap EVGA 400 watt, which not fantastic, but I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's EVGA at least, so it's probably not going to like catch on fire as soon as you plug it in. And then just a Windows 10 home OEM 64-bit. And so, yeah, total on that comes out to $437.93 as of right now. Though, like I said earlier, it was at $452 for some reason, but now it dropped again. So, yeah, I mean, so upgradable. You could like later down the road, you could pop in more RAM. You could add a hard drive to it, just like plug it in, format it, and you're good to go. Upgrade to an i5 or an i7. Power supply is only 400 watts, so it's not like you'll be able to go just completely nuts on a video card upgrade. But yeah, you could definitely have room there to upgrade to something better. So yeah, it's future proof. Definitely dust will be a concern, but
I wonder what the first upgrade purchase is going to be for this computer. I wonder what it feels like. This computer is missing something.
Yeah, it's just using the stock cooler. So I would definitely get a better cooler at some point if you're concerned about noise. Yeah.
If only there was something standing in between me and all of the fragile components to I don't know, enclose them in some sort of space. That'd be nice to have. All right, but let's save the criticisms. I'm sorry, I'm breaking the rules a bit. We will wait to criticize each other's builds until we've all talked through and explained our rationale, because that's very important. That's the whole point of this exercise. So we're going to move on to the next person alphabetically, and Jay, that would be you.
Oh, yes, thank you. I've been waiting a long time to share this awesome build. It's just, I look at it and it makes me weep because of how good it is. So let's just get right into it. I, like James, I went with an i3. I just went with a better one. So I went with the i3 4370, which is, for a gaming rig, obviously an i3 is not going to be a powerhouse, but it'll get it done. It'll get it going. For a motherboard, I went with the MSI H81i, which is a very cheap and bare bones motherboard. Doesn't even have Wi-Fi on it, but it'll get the job done. No muss, no fuss. For the RAM, unlike James, again, I went with 8 gigs because winners need at least 8 gigs. We picked the same solid state drive, obviously because it's super cheap and you're just going to be able to install, I guess, one game at a time. I went with the GeForce GTX 750 Ti. So the king of like the entry level cards, kind of. I squeezed the 750 Ti in there. Now, where it gets interesting is I do have a case to protect my system, unlike some people, and I use the Logisys CS6801 BK, which is a mini ITX case that comes with a 350 watt power supply. So it's, from what I've read, it's the best power supply ever made. So that should be interesting. I mean, are you rolling the dice a little? Sure, but when you're building a $450 computer, you're just rolling the dice in general. So I was able to squeeze all this stuff in because I'm using this case and power supply combo, which was only $42 or $43, and also I'm running Linux.
Ooh, so okay, so important follow-up question: what flavor of Linux are you running?
Listen, we haven't gone that far yet. All right, we're just running Linux. Whatever distro you want, you can use it. I'm not picky. Or there's a like a 1A option where you drop the i3 down a little bit, and I found a $36 version of Windows 7 Home on Amazon. Mm-hmm. So you could get that and just upgrade to Windows 10 if you want a slightly lower clock on your i3. It's up to the people. I'm a man of the people.
Yeah, I have to say, I was expecting one of us to pull this off because I did briefly look, and I was like, yeah, you can get that super cheap now.
Yeah.
And like, let's face it, drivers and updates and everything are still going to Windows 7. So
those
I think
really cheap Windows licenses are usually like a little sketchy. They're usually either TechNet keys or DreamSpark keys, or they've been pulled off of computers like a Dell or an HP.
Oh, fun. Good to know.
Listen,
well, I didn't do that. Computer. I didn't participate in such tomfoolery. and the other thing I'll comment about Jay's build is that, yeah, you included the $8 USB Wi-Fi dongle,
yes.
which is actually a good. It's worth mentioning because I don't think anyone had a motherboard that had. Actually, maybe I did, but I don't think anyone had a motherboard that had Wi-Fi included. So, you prefer to be wired in if not, but there's definitely some utility in having that, especially if you're talking about like a use case for this is I want to carry it around and bring it to places. Exactly. Sometimes Wi-Fi all you got. So,
and my computer's really tiny, just for the record. I'm guessing. I haven't seen everyone's, but I'm guessing mine's going to be the smallest. Oh, actually, James doesn't have a case, so his is technically the smallest.
It's as small as you want it to be.
It's the size of the room that it's in.
His literage is epically small, but yes, I have a very small, compact case.
Do you know the volume?
Jay, your case is 12 liters.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yes, 12 liters. I do.
r/they did the math. All right. This is looking good. So, I guess the next person alphabetically would be you, John. Dang it, I'm last. Yes. Wow, okay. All right, John, go for it.
And that's where you be at the end of the competition. Shots fired. I went a slightly different way because that's what I do, and loosely based it off the system that I'm running at the moment. So I went with a InWin BK623 case, which is 12.5 litres, but it includes a 300 watt power supply. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but this is a trusted unit because I'm running effectively the same case and power supply, and I'm running an FX8350 and an R7 360 on it, so I know it can handle my setup.
All right.
A BioStar A70U3P FM2 Plus micro ATX board, GTX 750 Ti because that seems to be the flavour of the moment. 8 gigs DDR3 1600 Avexa, I think is how you pronounce it. I've got Windows 10 Home OEM, which killed $100 out of the budget. And the same solid-state driver as everyone else. And an AMD Athlon quad-core. So I actually have a real quad-core at 3.7 gigahertz. So I loosely based it on the system I'm running at the moment, which runs quite solidly. Will play quite a lot of games.
So I have to say, I was really surprised you didn't go with Team Red for this one. You kind of tend to be our Team Red guy. I think we split down the middle. I think half of us, James and I went with Team Red, and then you two, Jay and John, both went with GTX 750 Tis. And it's an awesome card, but I found that dynamic very interesting.
Yeah, I would have gone for the R7 360 because I've got one, I know how good it is. But after rebate, the 750 Ti was slightly better value for money.
Good catch. And that's the tricky thing too, is that the buckets of pricing that these things exist in can sometimes make the decision making hard. So, all right, and I guess that just leaves me. Now, you'll notice one of the things that Jay did was he forewent using Windows and said, I'm just going to use Linux. And I decided early on that at least one person had to do that. So I decided to take on the solemn duty of being the Linux guy. But specifically, I would advocate for people to install SteamOS on this. And I do that for a few reasons. One, anything that's compatible with Linux is going to be compatible with SteamOS because underlying that is Debian. So, I mean, obviously there isn't exactly a wealth of games designed exclusively for Linux. I'll be the first person to admit that, but it's not excluding anything in that regard. Second off, SteamOS is actively being supported and developed by Valve, who's got a very strong economic and other interest in ensuring its success. And C, although definitely as a proportion of all the titles available on Windows, the catalog is pretty restricted for games that are compatible with Linux. There's sort of a twofold benefit where one, if you buy a game through Steam and install it on your Steam machine that's running SteamOS, the support for it's actually going to be very, very good. So games on Linux can sometimes be a bit dicey. Sometimes there's sort of performance penalties there. Valve has in general done a very, very good job of making sure that games can run to hardware performance. And in fact, some of their own games, their entire catalog runs on Linux now. They've actually seen minor performance improvements over Windows because Windows is more resource hungry than Linux is. And B, the nice thing is my thinking behind this build, similar to James's line of thinking, is that I want to build the best computer now that will allow you very cheaply to do upgrades in the future that'll make sure that the lifetime of this is good and that the upgrades are sort of self-evident. So if you buy, some titles through Steam on this sort of Steam machine running SteamOS, but then you get your hands on $100 and now you can upgrade and install Windows, you don't lose any of those games, right? You can immediately bring them back onto your new Windows machine and you're good to go. And now you have all the benefits of having access to even more games, but even the selection that exists just on SteamOS and for Steam machines right now is actually pretty good. It could be better, of course, but again, we're talking about a budget system. It's a very wide open catalog, and this is without even mentioning things like Wine and whatnot, which can allow certain PC titles to be compatible. They're just a bit more technical and hacky. Now, the reason I did this, right, and this was a hard decision, but the reason I did this other than just wanting someone who had a Linux build was because what you can do with the additional $100 for hardware is just substantially, just way, way better than literally everyone else's builds, okay? So if we look at the CPU, similar to John, I went with AMD Athlon X4 860K. It's a 3.7 gigahertz quad-core processor, so it's a true quad-core. And in a world where we're already seeing games that mandate that you have to have quad-core chips, this is a very important choice from a longevity perspective. It was $70, good deal, very good performance for the money, definitely the best value in that price range, so I think that that's a good choice. The motherboard is sort of a run-of-the-mill ASRock A68M ITX, mini ITX SM2 motherboard. Nothing particularly special about it, but it has all the things you'd expect, like USB 3 and a good warranty and all of this. So that's mostly just a fits the bill, fits the form factor. And indeed, this is a mini ITX build. For memory, you'll notice that James had to live with 4 gigs of memory, which is just a total crime.
I could put 8 in it now. The pricing is just wonky.
All right. Fine. But I have 8 gigs of RAM by Mushkin, so lifetime warranty made in the US. Very good performance memory, and it's only one stick, so it's easy to upgrade, right? Because there's another slot on the board, so you can just buy another stick and double your memory to 16, which almost no one needs at this point. And for the storage, I did something that no one else did. Everyone else went with the same 128 gig SSD. Now, I totally get the desire to use an SSD. Once you use it, it's hard to go back. Boot times improve, load times improve, all of this. Here's the problem. Those folks will have room for exactly 2 games. especially after they install Windows. I mean, they have like no storage left.
More than 2 games. No one.
I'm sorry, I'm getting into the critique. I shouldn't. I went with Hitachi Death Star, 1 terabyte.
Death Star.
Yeah, Desk Star or Death Star. 1 terabyte drive, 7,200 RPM. Definitely not going to be great in terms of performance. Booting the machine's going to take a lot longer. Load times for the games are going to be a bit longer. However, you're going to have all this room for all the games that you use. And so I was more focused on just the use case of gaming. Yes, it's a bummer you don't have an SSD, but you can upgrade to that later, and you actually have the room for all the games. Most importantly, however, is the video card. I have a Radeon R9 380 with 4 gigabytes of VRAM. That's overclocked, factory default, and in fact allows you to has a utility that allows you to overclock it further. This is a very, very good graphics card for the money. It has just enough memory where it'll be able to hold its own for a very good period of time. And in terms of its performance, you can pretty much max almost everything out at 1080p, and this guy will do a pretty good job. Obviously, at higher resolutions, it's going to struggle a lot, and that memory is going to become more of an issue. But certainly compared to like a console, this is going to whoop its ass. Paired with that Athlon X4 860K, and I think amongst all of us, it's by far the most potent graphics card, and that's sort of important when you're building ostensibly a gaming rig. Now for the hey, we'll get to almost done. I only have the case and power supply left. Similar to James, EVGA 400 watt ATX power supply. It's not anything special, but it's not something you've never heard of that they, they'll probably blow up your build in a month or two. And then for the case, I went with the Silverstone Sugo SG13BQ. Again, nothing terribly inspirational, but it's Silverstone, so the reputation is there, and it looks nice enough, and it gets the job done, and it's nice and compact. You could reasonably expect to be able to tote that guy around to LAN parties and all some such things. And when you sum it up, my grand total is $449.56. I have 44 cents left. So just made it.
It actually says it's over right now.
Right, but you have to subtract the shipping because we don't count shipping.
Oh, that's right.
So it's $453.42 minus the $398. Actually, that changed a little bit. I think it's now like 60 cents.
Well, it says $464.44 right now, but like I said, there's something weird going on with the pricing because it seems to fluctuate more than I would expect.
Yeah,
that's why I manually entered my prices as the way I saw them.
Oh, I'm looking. So you know what happened? April 22nd. Yeah, the price of the video card went down a little bit. Oh, that's interesting. All right. But yeah, all right, so that's all our builds. So we've explained the virtues, and now I'm going to start with at the very top of the list again. So that would be James. And James, you now have a minute or two to basically install everyone else's builds. Go for it.
Okay, so you have to have Windows if it's a gaming computer. I don't care what you say. The hard drive versus SSD, I mean, if this is all you would ever have, then yeah, hard drive makes sense. But kind of what I was saying is like, it's a lot easier to just pop a hard drive in, format it, and now you have 500 gigs, terabyte, whatever. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to start with a hard drive. And then if you want to go to an SSD, if you're lucky and you get a nicer SSD, it'll come with the cloning software. Otherwise, you're kind of on your own. You either had to figure out how to clone it or you had to just reinstall the OS. So starting with an SSD, not the greatest in the short term, but it's a lot easier to upgrade. And then Intel versus AMD, you just need Intel. And then maybe Zen will fix it, but for right now, you just do Intel. Lack of a case, I don't know. You can maybe just arrange it artfully, and it'll actually be better than having a case because it'll look interesting. Put it on your coffee. I don't know. Just go mow a few lawns or something and buy a case. But I mean, the 750 Ti though, I mean, I haven't really looked at a whole lot of benchmarks or anything, but I think it is better than the 360. So I do I do wish I was able to get
It
a
is.
better card. But yeah, it's really, I mean, I really just have a hard time saying like SteamOS. I mean, maybe it'll get better. I still don't think it's there yet. So I really think if you're going to build a gaming box, you really just need to go Windows. So yeah, that's mostly what I had to say. Oh, the J's, man, that power supply in that thing. Like, who even knows who makes it? Plus, isn't that a slim? That only takes slim cards, doesn't it?
Dual socket, low profile.
Yeah, low profile. So you're going to be really hurting on video card upgrades there. Because I think let's see 750 Ti is basically as good as it gets, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, mostly it's just like, yeah, you just Intel and Windows. So that's my thoughts on it.
All right, Jay, you're up.
This is going to be scathing. This is going to be like
I can't
a
wait.
Manhattan housewife running a Yelp review for a shitty coffee shop. That's how bad this is going to be right now. Let me just go down the list. All right. Wait, who's first? James is first. Oh, James, Mr. James. Let me pull your build up real quick. Hold on.
Not prepared, I see.
No, I am. There's no names on them, so I was like, whose build is all right, here we go. First of all, Mr. James has a very, very low spec i3. So I think, what is he? He's a rung down from me. Not the slowest, but not the best. If you're gonna stick with an i3, you should at least get the best one. I mean, come on.
They're
Let's
all
be
the
real
same.
here.
If it's you don't get an
they're
upgrade
all the
until you
same.
get to the i5.
Well, I thought the same thing until I looked at the benchmarks, and I was shocked by how much more performance I'm getting out of my i3 than yours. Moving on. 4 gigs of RAM, disgusting. And it's also 1333 memory. That's not even, we didn't even mention that. It's not even 1600. That's horrible. I hate it. The graphics card acceptable, I guess. You don't have a case. Let's be real, that's ridiculous. No case. That's just absolutely ridiculous. Your computer will burst into a giant fireball when a cat walks by, a dog, whatever. Kids, you got to have some sort of protection on those components. All right, moving on to who's next?
John.
John's next. John. Sweet John. I had high hopes for this system until I saw that awful AMD Athlon chip, that hair dryer that you put into your system. This will be the loudest computer in the history of time. But also, you only have one. You have one stick of RAM. You don't even have dual channel. It is 8 gig. I will give you credit for that, but I will take credit right back for only having one stick. Taking it right back. All right. You went with the PNY graphics card, which will be a fireball and explode in.
Citations.
It's the same graphics card.
No, different manufacturers. You also have your in-win case is acceptable. I'm not gonna ding you for that.
Oh, I wonder why.
Other than it being really ugly, I'm not gonna ding you. But yes, that BioStar board mixed with that Athlon processor, wow, just wow. That is crap, and I hate it. All right, moving on to Josh. Josh, you were talking. You were selling yourself. You were making it sound really good. If I was at a used car lot, I might have been driving home with something right now. But unfortunately, I'm not, and I've got to tear this system to pieces. All right. You also went with an AMD Athlon, which I'm sorry. Did these become good chips at some point? I'm confused. These are horrible CPUs. They're super hot, and you're using stock coolers with them. Literally, it's going to be the loudest thing ever in a compact case. Also, your Silverstone Sugo. I'm sorry. that case is obese. This is small form factor NAT. This isn't big fat case NAT, okay? So I don't want to see that anymore. The Hitachi Death Star, that's terrible. It's not an SSD. You'll be waiting for literally 20 minutes to boot into Linux all day. Your graphics card is good though, but you also have 1 gig of RAM. 1 stick of RAM. You gotta have dual channel. I'm sorry guys, it's 2016. And my system, let me just say one last thing about it. My system, A, is beautiful. One. All right. Sleek black lines. Okay. It's gorgeous on a stand. It has the best power supply possible for that amount of money. 350 beautiful watts of clean energy. Okay. And I have 2 sticks of RAM, DDR3 1600, and they have heat spreaders on them because that's how I roll. That's it. The end.
Bravo. And that leads us next to John. John, your turn.
Give me a second. Just
hey
some
man,
stats googling.
This is intense competition.
Okay then, I shall begin. James, where's your case? You
don't need a case.
Anyone floating around, they're gonna chuck stuff in the fan. Just throw stuff at the system. There's nothing to protect it.
Hey,
all that EMI
the
going through your house.
efficient enough, it doesn't need a fan.
all of that EMI going through your house, giving you brain cancer. Protect your system. 4 gigs of RAM. What is this? Like Windows Vista era? What, you're going to install Windows 10. What are you going to have left? What, 2 megs for your games? 2 megabytes of RAM for your games? Nothing's going to run. Trust me, I've tried it. It doesn't work. Jay, SteamOS. You've just knocked out 90% of the games available on the market.
Wait, who are you criticizing?
All of those heavy hitter games like GTA 5, all of that kind of stuff. You just can't play them. Playing games on Wi-Fi. Oh, good luck with that one. You get shot in the head before you even realize you're in the game. And that Logisys case, the integrated power supply, I can't even find specs on the thing. 430 watts, more like freaking 30 watts.
350. Get your facts straight.
350 watts. Okay.
More like 30.
Cool. 50 watts then.
Clean American watts, and by American I mean Chinese.
I was browsing Johnny Guru power supply reviews today. Came across a Logisys power supply. It went bang at half its rated power. Now that's saying something.
Well, we got efficiency, baby. We're not worried about that.
Joshua, same thing on SteamOS. I'm not going to repeat myself, but you've come across one major issue, and our listener Jordan will also back me up on this. AMD Catalyst on Linux, you're fucking insane. It doesn't work. This driver is so far behind on Linux, it's not funny. You've got a Death Star mechanical drive. It's still a Death Star. You're going to load in the game. You're going to load into the games 20 seconds after the countdown timer finishes. You're going to be standing there just AFK and you're going to get kicked for being a bot. And just on a lighter note, your RAM's green. It's ugly. And by the way, Jay's i3 for 4370 and pass mark gets about the same as our Athlons.
Yeah,
that sounds better.
Literally a quarter of the heat output.
What is the wattage on that, actually?
The i3?
55, I think.
So it's only 10 watts lower.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about in real world practical use, though. That's 10 watts.
About 10 watts lower.
Becomes
Yeah.
about 290 watts. Your 400 watt
All
CPU.
right. You had your chance. Now it's my turn. All right. So I'll do specific complaints, and then I'll do like everything, all of your builds except mine get wrong. So James, it's a nice case you got there. Super minimalist, right? Like couldn't be more understated.
It's as nice looking as you imagine it to be.
Yeah, exactly. I applaud your creativity, but I think anyone would reasonably say that the lack of a case is a lack of a practical computer, and I mean, just no, just no. I mean, at least make the argument that you could use the cardboard in the Newegg box that your order comes in to, like, I don't know. You should have, what your build was really missing was like $12 to buy scissors and duct tape that you'll need to actually make this work. And even then, I think we could agree that it's awful. You went with the Intel Core i3, which for nearly twice as much as I'm spending provides basically equivalent performance, and it's a dual core versus mine's, which is actually a quad core, like actually has 4 cores. You have 4 gigabytes of memory, which is insulting. I mean, we can assume that you bumped that up to 8, but now you're using slots, so it's hard for you to upgrade. You have an SSD, which is nice until you realize you can only install 1 game at one time because you have no gosh darn storage to speak of, and guess what? Games actually take storage. And then you pick like an okay power supply, and you got Windows and whatever. It's fine and dandy. Moving right along. I'm looking at, let's see here. This is Jay's. You went with the higher performance. You spent, let's see here, from $113 to $142. That's $30 more, and you basically got practically no meaningful performance improvements. So that's a total waste of money when you're talking about gaming. That's also over twice the price of my CPU that will, again, also have 4 cores and actually ties you performance-wise. So the value of this for a 450 build is suspect. You've got 2 modules of memory. In practice, using 1 module is really not going to matter from a performance standpoint. Maybe theoretically you have twice the bandwidth, but in reality, in terms of what people are actually doing, they'll never notice it. And now it's less upgradable because, like, what if you want 16? How many slots do you have? How's that going to work? That's a bummer. You also have decided to go the 120 solid-state drive, which is A, inexpensive, and B, leaves absolutely no space for games, which is sort of important when we're talking about a gaming rig. And then you have this beautiful Logisys case where I'm pretty sure that power supply probably weighs 12 ounces and the wiring is made entirely of human body hair. Moving right along. Moving right along to John. He made the intelligent choice and went with the AMD Athlon X4 860K, a wonderful processor for the money, very good value bet, excellent job. He also went with a brand of memory I have literally never heard of before, so good luck getting a warranty repair on that. He also went with the same god-awful storage that will only have room for 1 game. He also went with the InWin BK623.BH300TB3 case, and let me tell you, if you ever buy a case that has that many figures and digits, it's not a good case, right? It's just not. It's ugly. It imposes limitations. That power supply does not have a lot of juice. Just not an appetizing build here, to say the least. Now let's turn to all of your builds, because you all made an egregious error. You all did not invest nearly enough in your graphics cards. All of you have graphics cards that have only 2 gigabytes of VRAM. This is ridiculous. You talk about SteamOS limiting the games you can play. You limited the games you can play in the hardware. And you know what? You can't just upgrade those by adding another one or doing Sly or Crossfire or anything like that. Most of you can't anyway. You're going to have to replace the whole card. And guess what? That's expensive. You should have done that from the beginning. If you're talking about a computer build that'll actually last you for the long haul and where upgrades make sense and are easy, you need to invest in the hardware that matters most now, and then work on the minutia and the small stuff later. And that's what I did. If you look at any reviews or rating systems or hierarchical charts, my graphics card destroys your graphics card. The most powerful one I saw was like the TI or the R7 360. I have an R9 380, twice the memory, sometimes close to twice the performance, right? And it can actually play modern titles 1080p at mostly maxed out settings today. Meanwhile, although I don't have an SSD, the only thing that really impacts in terms of game performance is loading times, which, let's face it, is not that big a deal in comparison to, say, frame rate or anti-aliasing or how good the graphics actually are. Furthermore, I actually have room to store games. I have a whole terabyte. My whole gaming library doesn't even take up a terabyte of space. So there's no imposed limitation. Yeah, again, my catalog through SteamOS might be limited, but at least I can actually download and install them. I also have one 8 gig stick of memory, so I actually have room to expand that over time without any meaningful impact to performance. Unlike the brilliant decisions by Jay and John to rely on power supplies that are boundlessly and almost assuredly going to enter into the channels and lore of Johnny Guro's Death of a Gutless Wonder series. My EVGA power supply isn't a ticking time bomb and supports a decent wattage of 400 watts versus 350 or, my God, even just 300 watts. And best of all, it's in a case that, while large for what it is still an ITX case, still provides excellent compatibility with graphics cards all the way up to the highest end enthusiast ones, all paired with a processor that, although not the best thing in the world, will not bottleneck performance of any of the other parts. All you need to do to make this perfect is go from SteamOS to Windows, and that will be one of the easiest and most inexpensive upgrades one could make. Nothing else, not gaming performance, not overall performance, nothing else is impacted because I invested where it mattered. I invested in the hardware. All these other folks, yeah, sure, they made a more balanced build, or yeah, Windows is sort of nice. I made the best gaming build for the money, and I think that's indisputable by far, especially when you look at the graphics card.
How's GTA 5 play on it?
I think you're a liar. That's what I think.
All right. We have made our case. We have made our arguments. And now the listener, yes, that's right, you, the person listening to my beautiful, beautiful voice right now, you choose. We will be posting a news article on this on SFF Network. We'll try and time it around the time that the podcast goes live. But we will also have a forum thread. On that forum thread, we'll have a poll in which people can vote which build they like the most. Like I said before, we'll provide links so you can take a look at the specific hardware that we chose. We encourage discourse. We will all be on this thread vigorously defending our choices and mercilessly attacking the people who formerly were our friends. We'll let this poll run for some predetermined period of time and then close it. Whoever's the winner will win bragging rights. And then, of course, we will also allow the community to figure out what our next build challenge will be. And this will be a monthly recurring thing. So every other podcast will go through this. Basically, at the end of every month, you now have yet another thing to look forward to. Yes, I know in the U.S., politics, it's rough, it's gruff, it's taking over the news cycles, but it's got nothing on the ferociousness, on the blithness, on the sheer anger and vitriol that these build log challenges will hold. My thanks to all our competitors. May the frame rates be ever in your favor.
I hate you
Can I
all.
just say that I hope we never do a budget this low.
It's 450 is fine. 450 gaming is gets really hard.
I just want to bring I just want to bring Joshua's attention to the two links that I just posted.
Oh, okay.
They're Johnny Guru links. Now, my FSP power supply is the same internals as the Silverstone 300-watt SFX. So the EVGA 400-watt got a 5.5.
Ooh.
The Johnny Guru got the FSP 300-watt / Silverstone unit, 8.6.
Hey man. I don't care about your science and mathematical data. Okay, this is not a place for those things. I believe in my heart that my power supply is better. So my power supply is better because I looked it up in my heart.
You guys don't want to have a system where you don't know if it will turn on or not, like my Logic's. You just might not know.
That's
Every
right.
day's an exciting day.
You should have.
Are you running your ITX boards off one of those?
Yeah, that's fun.
You should have extolled it. You should have extolled it as a virtue, right? Like all these other people, they have boring builds that you know are probably going to turn on every time. Every time you press the power button on my build, it's a lottery. It's like scratching a lottery ticket. And guess what? It's
awesome.
Scratching a lottery ticket where 9 times out of 10 you're a winner.
It's gonna be awesome. I'm telling you. I can't wait.
It's like a free game is bundled within the computer. Will my
Exactly, cross your
computer
fingers.
actually function?
It's called cross your fingers, and you do it every time you hit the power button.
That's right. I hear. Eventually, there's this epic boss fight with a house fire.
No,
Unfortunately,
all my systems wrapped in asbestos.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you need the fire extinguisher expansion pack to be able to get to that one. But
That's included with most homes, so you should be fine.
that's included with most homes. That's right. Ah, okay. All
It is.
All right, and with that, we shall end our show, as is typical with, oh my goodness, the listeners may know that we're slowly adding more and more words that start with F to the title of this segment. I fear what's going to happen 50 episodes from now. It's going to take me 5 minutes to introduce this. It's now the Fully Favorite Forum Fread of the Fortnight. Our favorite or most interesting thread that we stumbled on in the past few weeks, and today's actually doesn't really have to do with anything small form factor, although it does have to do with something that may be of interest to a lot of folks, and that is the Tesla Model 3, which was recently announced. Tesla had a kind of fancy event, Elon Musk speaking, all of that fun stuff. This is the highly anticipated in air quotes, affordable electric car that, Tesla has been meaning to make the whole time. They developed the Model S and the Model X, and those are nice, but they're fairly expensive. This is sort of bringing that technology down to the masses. Some of the specs, according to Tesla, these are EPA figures, 5-star safety rating in all categories, a range of 215 miles, 346 kilometers. It can go from 0 to 97 kilometers an hour in over 6, seats 5 people, and it has autopilot and supercharging, although I'm not sure if those are standard, which is actually something I was going to ask James about, because James is kind of our resident Tesla expert, since he's at least thinking about, if not already interested in acquiring one. I just have enjoyed sort of following Tesla and the work they do. I'm not in the market for a car insofar that I live in Boston, where, if you can get by with public transportation like I do, you just don't want to own a car. I don't know why you'd want to own a car. It's expensive, the insurance is horrendous, and everyone on the roads of Boston is actively trying to kill you. That said, if I were in the market for a car, and I had sort of lots of extra income and, wanted a car in the $35,000 price point, this is definitely a nice car. It's, because it's electric, so you got the cost of like the battery and the, mechanics behind that. But, it's also still, it's got lots of nice luxurious touches. It's got this massive 17-inch screen in the center console, sort of similar to the even larger, more portrait-like one that's in the Model S. I think anyone would say that this is kind of a forward-looking car. And in fact, it actually is a forward-looking car insofar that I don't think you can even get your hands on it for the pre-order until like the end of next year. But all that said, for whatever reason, this really took off on the forums. People had some very interesting discussions surrounding it, and I really only participated to say I don't drive, I like it, but so much money. So much money. All the builds I'll ever make in my lifetime will probably not exceed $35,000. So what do you guys think?
You'd be surprised.
Just give me a Tesla minivan, and that's all I want.
A minivan?
I have kids.
That you can tie them to the roof.
Kids are a temporary problem. You can give them away. It'll be great. You can get a sports car.
Heck, you can sell some of them, and now you can afford a Tesla.
Yeah, duh. No brainer there.
That's like Model S money.
As long as they're hard workers, you can sell them.
Oh my god.
Anyhow,
this is getting way too dark way too quickly. That's not where I was meaning to go. I was not aiming for child labor with that joke, listeners, for what it's worth. I was aiming for like secret adoption, but okay.
No. I went right there.
Yeah, you did. Anyway.
I think this is an ugly car, personally.
Oh, really?
I think Yeah, I don't like the way it looks so much. I think it's frumpy looking and squat. It looks like a Mazda 3 with no face. It's for I will say this. It's a tremendous achievement for them to come out with an electric car with this many features for $35,000. Now, it will be interesting to see what exactly comes with the $35,000 model, but it is very impressive. 215-mile range isn't that great. Personally, this is around the price range where I would be looking for getting a new car. The problem with that is the tax incentive will be gone by the time. If you're listening to this now and you haven't pre-ordered it, the tax incentive will be gone if you go to get one now. So it's going to be $35,000 plus whatever features you add on to it. So when you factor that into the fact that you don't get quick fill-ups, you can't take it on road trips. There are things you just can't do with the car currently. I personally wouldn't probably get one unless it was, say, like a second car. Like you had use it for going to work and coming home and as a city car. But I still think that electric cars are fairly impractical until they come out with the hot swappable battery stations like they've been talking about for years. I think they'll remain fairly impractical. But a cool car at a good price.
Yeah, as far as options go, like the autopilot thing, they've been very careful on wording. So I think what they've said is that all the safety stuff will be default. So like the automatic braking and things like that will be built in, but like the autopilot the hardware will be there, but they haven't said that it'll be included by default. So more than likely, like the autopilot functionality will be extra. Speaking of which, though,
an in-app purchase.
Well, no, really. The Model S, you can get a trial of the autopilot. Yeah. Yep. So it's like I want my 30-day trial of autopilot, and then if you like it, you can buy it. Yeah.
There's an app for that.
Very cool car. I mean, relatively speaking.
So can I ask you though, Jay? It's like I think overall I think it looks pretty good. Not like whoa, like lust for this vehicle, but like, especially with the matte paint finishes, I think it looks nice. But the one thing that I really don't like about it is what they did with the front. And the reason I don't like about it is because these are electric cars. So James, correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically have trunk space both in the front and the back,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, on the Teslas you do. The Bolt you actually don't for some reason.
You have a trunk and a frunk.
Sure. So okay, so because of that, because it's an electric car, you don't need a grill. So if you look at this car, like where there would normally be a grill, it's just like a plastic. Exactly. So I was sort of disappointed because it's like, you're designing an electric car that like a grill would never come into play and makes no sense, but you're designing it like a traditional diesel or gasoline car, and then you're just like putting a plate over where the grill you don't need otherwise would have been, and it's like that's that's stupid. Like you should design you're so freed up in terms of the design of the car due to the nature of the fact that everything is kind of at the bottom and you have all this freedom and ability to arrange things as you want, like, and then what you basically choose to do is say, well, we're going to make it look like any other car, make it look like a nicer version of any other car, I guess, but then like your solution like literally you can see like your brain tries to insert a grate where there isn't one because it's, I think they could have done I think they've not even like some of the more ridiculous, ways you could imagine how an electric car works. I mean, they could have been conservative about it, but I still think they sort of dropped the ball, and it's just like, you don't see this, and it's not an inspiring design. It's not a design that you feel like this is the future of what cars are going to look like. This is.
Yeah, I think part of it's aerodynamics. Like they were limited by being able to maintain like a low drag coefficient. But I think also part of it is that, I mean, the renders on the website I don't think look very good at all. But like seeing the more pictures I see of the actual cars, like the more I like it. And I think part of it though is we had to keep in mind is just we're used to there being grills. Like once everything's electric, then like I'm thinking like the kids growing up now will just be used to it and they won't think anything of there not being a grill on the front. It'll just be that's normal. So I mean, thinking of it that way, it's kind of I would rather they just not do a grill than put like a fake one, is what it is, since it doesn't need it.
Yeah, at least they didn't. At least they didn't do that.
They smoothed the whole front like a Corvette.
They did do a fake grill on the Model S.
Yeah, what that is though
just
is
black
that's
paint, and it
it's
works.
plastic because the radar's there, and I think what it is they were able to integrate it without having to do that on the 3 is what's happened. So that's why it's like that on the S.
They just need to put a plastic bit on because even the Model X, which is their SUV one, has the same issue where there's a gap where, like, you look at a car, it's like the front of it's like a face, and then these vehicles are missing the mouth.
Well, that's
is
just
what's
because
probably
you're used
weirding
to
us out. Yeah.
I also think
But
that grills look good. If you think about popular cars, think about an Aston Martin, Mercedes, any BMW. The distinctive part of those cars that you can identify them immediately is the grill. I mean, it's an attractive. It can be an attractive part of the car while also being functional, obviously. So, this smoothing effect, I just don't personally like the way it looks. I could get used to it, and I'm sure I will. But for me, I think an actual grill just looks better.
Well, but the key word in that sentence is that, you know, grills can look good, like they can be distinctive. I mean, yeah, there are many examples of cars that blow it because the grill looks stupid. And any car, you know, like, we have no idea what's going to be 20 years in the future, but electric cars will probably have some sort of component of their design that's born of both form and function and becomes distinctive in its own right, and it'll have the sort of same characteristics. You know, you just need to be careful because, like, you know, cars have basically been the same for decades, you know, across all of our entire lifetimes. I mean, yeah, the design and language has refined a lot, but kind of the basic construction and shape of a car hasn't really changed at all because the mechanics haven't changed, and that's remained a constraint. I think once car designers sort of free themselves of that legacy perspective and are able to say, let's really explore what we can do and where we can go, like what are design choices that provide not only sort of mechanical or other benefits or needs, but sort of maximize things that a diesel car would get in the way of. So like an obvious thing to me is just like the idea of having this big amount of space in the front of the car that separates you from the actual front of the vehicle. Like, that makes things like parking a lot harder than they really need to be. And, you know, you could, in fact, in one of the, we're sort of dumping a bunch of pictures of cars, and you can see like a theme of some of these electric cars. What they do is they bring the driver a lot closer to the front of the vehicle. So I just think there are a lot of places that we'll be able to go once, I don't know, maybe electric cars become more common and it's more acceptable to sort of have these more aggressive designs that depart from traditional vehicles. But you know, you'd think with a company like Tesla that they'd be sort of on the forefront of that, and yet they honestly probably have the most conservative designs in terms of those kinds of departures. That's not to say they have the worst designs, it's just to say that like their electric cars look more like gasoline cars than many other electric cars look like gasoline cars, and you know, it's kind of a bummer.
I think that's by design, though. I think they do that purposely to ease. If imagine if the Model S came out and it was like a box with look like, you know, like it looked like a SEPTA bus, like a bus. You're sitting right up, you know what I mean? Like people would have been like, no thanks. Like that's crazy because it's too far of a departure from what we're used to. But so I think that is somewhat done by design. When truly autonomous cars come to market, I think that's when you'll see a real departure from 4 wheels, 4 seats, and you'll start to see a car being more like a moving room, like a living room, where you're all kind of, you know, it's like a communal experience where you're talking, and there's, you know, might be a table in the center, or like, you know, something like that. But as long as we still have our hands on the wheel and everything is still directed at going forward and driving. You're the driver. It's all about the driver. I think we're going to get shapes like this. Because that's what people are comfortable with.
All right, and with that, we are done with the show that I guess was formerly called Low Volume Small Form Factors Podcast and has now become Low Drag Small Car Forums bi-weekly show about mostly awful, ugly vehicles. My name is Joshua Ramirez, aka PlayfulPhoenix. I was joined today by the full crew. That would include John, also known as Confusis, Aibohphobia, which is of course James, and Tek Everything, which is of course Jay. Now, gentlemen, what are you guys planning to do in the next 2 weeks?
Find a 3-wheel car and tip it over.
How about you, Jay?
I'm going to find John's 4-wheel car and tip that over.
And,
Good luck.
And James?
Well, I'm gonna fly, so I don't have to worry about cars at all. But I'm going to
where are you
California to visit my sister.
Aww. Well, you have a wonderful journey. And listeners, we will be back in 2 weeks. Definitely look for our forum thread and news post on the build competition. And we will see you next time.